Hey guys, Delaney here. Congratulations! You now have lambs on your farm. Now what? Today we're going to talk about what we shepherds do once those lambs hit the ground. There's a lot that we need to keep track of to make sure that these new sweet little lambs survive and thrive. Okay, picture this. You've just watched your ewe finish up lambing. Let's assume there were 2 lambs. One of the things that you should have done immediately after the babies have come out, if you're there to watch their exit from mom and their entrance into the world, is to make sure that the lamb's airways are clear. You can wipe their mouths of fluid. You can stick your finger in their mouth to pull out anything that they may have swallowed. If the lamb is struggling to breathe, what you can do is actually stick a piece of straw up their nose. It kind of helps their sneeze reflex, and that will help get gunk out of their nose. Or you can use one of the baby nasal aspirators. There is also a mouth pump that you can put on. It's sort of like a mask with a squeeze bottle at the end, so it can help suck out any more of the gunk that might still be in their nose and throat. And you can definitely use that if it is one of those items that you purchased during your lambing prep. Either way, the lamb should be breathing and making noise, wiggling and trying to start to stand, or already walking. If you have a cold lamb, there are some extra steps you'll need to take to make sure that they are warm and going to make it. I've personally never had to do anything with a hypothermic lamb. We usually lamb in the spring, and it's a little bit warmer here in Tennessee. But this year, we're actually lambing early. We're lambing in February, and sometimes we have some really cold snaps. Sometimes we've had ice storms, and so this is definitely something I'm doing some pre-research on to make sure that I am prepped in case a lamb comes and ends up really cold before I can get out and help. There are some really great websites that give you some details on how you need to administer medicine and warm them up, and how long between the babies coming out of mom and them not doing well that you can give a certain amount of dosage. So it's really intricate. It's like if it's within 2 hours, you can do this. If it's within 5 hours, you can do this. If it's after 5 hours, you have to do other things. And so it's really, really nitpicky on how you're supposed to take care of hypothermic lambs. And so I will link a really great website that I have found that has a really nice chart that you can follow if you're ever in this situation. I personally recommend printing out some sort of chart and keeping it in some sort of shepherding notebook so that you're not struggling to find it. You have it, and it is a hard copy, and you're not having to scroll on your phone all the time. You can just open the book and have it out as you're like filling up the dosage and all that stuff. Keep in mind that these are really, really important to follow to the letter, because if you give the dose before the lamb is at the right temperature, you can kill the lamb. If you don't do it within a certain amount of time, you can kill the lamb. There's a lot of things that, if you don't give this lamb help, they're going to probably die anyway, so just do the best you can. But definitely follow these guidelines, because it will help the lamb way more, and you don't have to ever question if you did anything wrong if you go by these steps. If you go by these steps and the lamb still doesn't make it, you can have kind of that reassurance that I did everything I possibly could. You might also need to put the lamb in a warming box if the mom is not doing a great job and the lamb is still really, really wet. Dry off the lamb and then place them in some sort of container. We use like an old storage box that we have with some blankets. You can use a heated blanket, and that'll add that extra warmth. In addition to using a hair dryer, you can stick the lamb in there with the blankets or the heating blanket and blow the hair dryer on them just to get the lamb's temperature up in order to dose it with whatever it needs. It's sort of like a little incubator for the lamb that's just come out to help just get the whole body warm and not target one place, because if you have just a lamb wrapped up in blankets and are doing the hair dryer, you're only able to get certain spots at one time. So when you put it in a box, it'll kind of warm the whole box up, and you'll be able to more thoroughly warm up the lamb. I have also seen people put the lamb in a bag and then put the bag inside warm water, so the lamb's not getting wet. It is still being surrounded by warmth. I would only do that in the most dire situations, because I would just be worried that whatever bag pops or it leaks or I'm not holding it right, depending on the size of the lamb in my arms, like, and how long you're having to keep the lamb in there. It could just get really, really sore and like, I can't hold it. So like that would be my last resort, is to do the water bath. For me, it's just like no blankets and a little tub and a hair dryer, I think would be our best bet. But again, we've never done this before, so this is our plan A, and then plan B would be the sort of water bath. The caveat to the warming box is you do have to keep an eye on the temperature, because if you have a warm blanket and you're doing the hair dryer, you don't want the lamb to get too overheated. So be sure that you monitor the little lamb and make sure that it's not getting too hot. We actually have a heat gun that we can shoot into the box, and it will tell us the temperature, and it's really, really accurate. So for us, we'll be able to monitor exactly how hot or cold the box is. You also might need to tube feed the lamb. We personally, again, have not done this. We had the vet, when we had an emergency vet visit during labor, she recommended just having the lambs be tubed because she just wasn't sure how mom was going to recover, and the lambs had been through a pretty traumatic birth. So we were just like, go ahead and tube feed them just to make sure that they get that first shot of colostrum in them. Colostrum needs to be in those lambs within 24 to 48 hours, and there's a certain amount you need to reach. It's really important that that lamb gets that. So if it's really struggling, if it's not having a sucking reflex or it's struggling to swallow, this is when you need to pull out the tube feeder. It also might be helpful if you don't have any bottles and the mom is struggling to kind of get up and feed her lambs, to then tube feed and just make sure that those lambs are getting the nutrition and giving mom a little bit of extra time. I recommend bottles if they have the sucking reflex, and then if they don't, you need to tube feed. If the lamb is at the right temperature, then just a little bit of colostrum and a little bit of food might help them kind of perk up if they're kind of getting a slow start. But again, only if their temperature is high enough. You need to make sure that the temperature on the lamb is correct before you decide to put food in them. The food might actually do more harm than good if it's not at the correct temperature. These are some of the sort of regular problems that you might have when the lambs come out. We'll assume that from here on out the lambs are good, their temperature is good, they have a sucking reflex, they're walking around, or they're at least attempting to, and then walking around. They're making progress, they're making noise, they're searching for mom, they're doing all the things that lambs should do when they first come out. That you didn't need to tube feed them, put them in the incubator, or treat them for hypothermia. They were perfectly well, healthy lambs. Their legs and bodies are looking good, there's no wobbling, there's no weird walking, there's no stumbling. The lambs are making the right progress, that are giving all the signs that they will survive on their own. The next step for us is to make sure that mom and babies are in a lambing jug. Now sometimes if I know that the mom is close, I will go ahead and put her in before she goes into labor, just so that she is contained, and if we need to go in and help her, that it's easier to kind of pin her and grab her. But if you went into labor and you weren't aware that she was in labor and she's either out free or maybe in the barn but not separated from everybody, then this is a time where you can actually grab the babies, because they're easier to catch, and lead mom into the lambing jug. Mom will follow. If she's a good mom, she will follow the babies in and make sure that they're taken care of. It won't be as hard to kind of get her in and separated, because she'll follow her babies. After that, what I do is I will strip the teat. There is some sort of waxy plug at the end of the sheep's teat. This is pretty common. I think it happens with goats and cows as well. The plug is there to make sure that there are no infections or no viruses or bacteria that can enter into the udder during the gestation period. The lamb's job is to go ahead and latch onto mom, and usually if it's a very vigorous lamb, it will suck the plug out and then continue to feed. But if you have an unmotivated lamb, a lamb who can't find mom's teat or can find it but doesn't have a strong sucking reflex, then you need to go in and do the first few pumps of the teat in order to get the plug out and the milk running. There are a lot of times where a lamb will go on, it'll look like it's eating, but it's not, and then the lamb doesn't get that colostrum, it starts to lose weight, and it starts to not really do very well. So for my sanity, I make sure that I go in and I get that plug out if the lamb hasn't already pulled it out. And since we're on a dairy and our girls are really used to me tugging on their udders and their teeth, and they're really comfortable with me, it's super easy to just go up to them, sort of push them against the wall to make sure that they're not moving, and then just strip the teat until the milk's flowing. Once I have made sure that each side has milk flowing freely, the next thing that I will do is make sure that the lamb is actually finding mom's teat and on it and eating. Our dairy sheep have very, very large udders, and most of the time they're even more swollen right before and after labor. So a lot of times the lambs have a harder time finding the teats because they're hanging so low to the ground. The lambs tend to hit mom's hip and her kind of back area, and they won't be able to find where the teats are. We had one instance where the lamb was so big and mom's udder so full, I actually had to train the lamb to go onto its knees to be able to reach the teat. And you will know if a lamb is actually eating because you will see its tail wag. It's the cutest little thing. As soon as it is on mom, you will see the little tail wag, and then when the lamb pops off, you will see a little bit of white foam around its mouth. Another trick you can do is actually grab the lamb around the stomach, and you'll feel it very warm and kind of expanded, so like you can tell that it's been eating. The lamb will also be less noisy and will often go and lay down with mom very peacefully. If the lamb isn't getting the nutrition and the milk that it needs, it will continue to make noise. It will continue to kind of hound and pester mom until it gets the food it needs, unless it's a lamb that's really struggling, and then it's a little harder to tell because they're just weaker anyway. So for me, one of the things I like to do after the babies have come out is strip the teats and then watch and make sure the babies can actually latch on. And once they latch on, I do all of those checks. I check their mouth to see the foam. I make sure their tail is wiggling, and then I will also grab kind of their bellies and make sure that they are looking good and looking full. If you still have a question on whether the lamb is actually getting the food, what you can actually do is weigh it. We have a little lamb scale where we can weigh our sheep. If you weigh the lamb ahead of time and then you put the lamb on mom and you're just like, I'm not sure if it's eating, then when the lamb looks like it's done, you can pull it out and weigh it again and see if it has changed weight at all. It'll be very, very minor, but you might be able to see a difference, and you will definitely be able to see a difference between one day and the next. Again, if you're having a question on whether it's getting the food, it's really important to tube feed or bottle feed. In addition to checking the weight, we will also check the gender. It's really important for us to know what the ratio of girls to boys is so that we can kind of make our future farm plans. And then so the next few days we will continue to monitor and just make sure again that the weight is going up, that nothing looks off, the babies aren't getting lethargic, mom's not doing bad, that she's still kind of up and doing her job. And then when that hits, we kind of know that everything's okay. If you hit about day 2 or 3 and things just still seem a little off, then you may need to make some extra steps, maybe even pulling the lamb off mom and making it a bottle baby. We'll talk a little bit more about bottle babies in a future video, and I can kind of tell you what our experience has been thus far, because we did start out with 5 bottle babies for our first flock, and then we had 2 last year. It's a topic for another time because it does expand into a lot of what happens with bottle babies. I will make sure to make a video and make a note that I will make a video, but today I'm just going to kind of keep going as if the babies are doing great and we don't need to pull them and they're still with mom. Around day 2 and 3, that is when we will actually let mom and babies out of the lambing jug. If all signs are pointing to them being good, we just let mom and baby do their thing. If we see the ewe at all rejecting her lambs, not taking care of them, or refusing to let the lambs eat, then we will pull them to be bottle babies. It's a lot easier to monitor bottle babies and to take care of them. So if there's anyone that looks like they're really not doing well, it's better to bottle feed than to keep them on mom. We haven't had a ton of issues with this. Most of our girls are really great moms, but we did have one that had 1 traumatic labor and then a second traumatic labor, and by the second one, she was like, I'm done. I don't want to have anything to do with these creatures coming out of me. And I was like, girl, I get it. I was like, I understand. It's frustrating, but I understand, and I don't completely blame you for being a bad mom, because it has been kind of traumatic for you to have babies. I'll give you a pass on being angry because it was hard. But her biggest issue was that she wasn't attacking her lambs or pushing them away. What she would do is the baby would try to eat, and she would just walk away and kind of use her back legs to sort of knock the baby off of her. And so she just wasn't letting them eat. And so we had to pull both of her boys off and bottle feed them because she just wasn't letting them. And I had to literally push her up against a wall and pin her in order for her to even allow it. And after about a day, 2 days of me trying to like train her to let the babies eat, she just wasn't having it. So I just was like, you know what, it's going to be a lot less work for me to just pull them. There aren't a ton of steps that we shepherds need to do if we have a really good mom and she really knows what she's doing and the lambs are able to kind of figure it out on their own. And most of the stuff that we do is really, really quick. It's all within probably an hour or two of the lambs coming out. The few things that we need to focus on is to make sure that babies and moms are bonded well together, that mom is feeding them and that the lambs are actually eating, and that they all look strong and healthy. That also includes taking care of mom and making sure that she's okay. We have had a few issues with moms recovering from labor. We had one that we weren't sure what happened, but she was grinding her teeth the next day and just in a lot of pain. So there are some stuff we need to do with mom if she's showing signs that she's not doing well. But they're very particular to each ewe. I think some had diarrhea that we treated for something, and then another one again, she was grinding her teeth and in pain, so we gave her a painkiller. One of the moms, we had to pull a really big baby out, and she had a swollen vulva, and so I had to use hemorrhoid cream on her rear to kind of help with the swelling. So the way that we help and treat mom really depends on how she reacts post-labor. So it's really hard for me to say do this because of this, because I haven't experienced everything, and the things I have experienced have been a little weird. Most of our lambs that have actually made it through labor have been extremely healthy and very strong. We just assist if we feel like we need to, or if it would move things along a little faster. Like if you're going to work and you need to make sure that those babies are being fed the colostrum because you're going to be gone for a few hours, definitely bottle and tube feed and see if they'll take it. A lot of times you can tell if a baby hasn't been eating off mom when you offer a bottle and they like suck it down. Or the complete opposite, I've gone out and I was like, well, I'm just going to double check and make sure they're not hungry. I'll grab a baby with a bottle and see if it'll take it, and it won't. It will struggle, it will fight, it will not want to be with me, and it will run over to mom and start sucking on her teat, and I go, okay, the baby's fine. But if you don't have a ton of time to kind of wait and watch and make sure that they're doing it naturally, sometimes it's just good to kind of step in to make sure you can get through it and make sure, okay, they're definitely eating. I can go take care of my kids. I can go to work. I can go do the things I need to do instead of sitting here for 2 hours and like watching it and hoping stuff will happen. If I can take 15 minutes to make sure that the lamb is eating and mom is doing her job, I don't have to worry about coming out as frequently to check on them during the day, because I got to get back to my house and take care of my own babies. Not every farm is going to look the same in how they approach after lambing care. Some people tube feed anyway, some people don't, some people bottle feed immediately, some people don't, some people pull all lambs off and don't let them be with mom ever. Some will do some off, some on. It really depends on how people want to run their farm, as well as what they are physically able to do with the time and the resources they have. This is just what we do, our experiences, and how we've made lambing work for us. We have been very blessed with most of our ewes being really good mamas, and they do a lot of the work for us. That's why I love them so much. That's the ideal for me, that the ewes do their job beautifully, that she takes care of her lambs, and we get to enjoy those active, energetic, bouncy little lambs. If you like this video, please give it a good thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified the next time we upload a video. Praying for smooth lambings and a great season for you all. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!